Right, I can see we have quite a number of participants connected, so I'm going to take the opportunity to start. First of all, of course, dear colleagues, dear advocates, a very warm welcome and a big thank you for joining us today. We're honoured to welcome all of you in this CSW side event on advancing collaboration and civil society engagement in official data processes. Before we begin, I have just a couple of housekeeping rules. So firstly, just a reminder that the event today will be recorded. Secondly, please do feel free to use the Q&A button that you'll see at the bottom of your screen if you want to ask any questions during the event. And just, we have a lot of great discussions today. We'll start with some opening words from Papa Seck, Chief of UN Women's Research and Data Section, before handing over to Liliana Suchodolska, Gender and Inclusive Data Ecosystem Lead at our own Paris 21. We're then delighted to move to a panel discussion on participatory opportunities for gender data, where we'll be seeing examples from the Dominican Republic and Uganda, coupled with perspectives from development partners. Without further ado, let me now hand over to Papa Seck for the welcome. Papa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sophie, and greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this CSW side event, empowering each other for gender data transformation, advancing collaboration and civil society engagement in official data processes. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the most comprehensive global framework for gender equality. Amongst its key objectives, H3 emphasizes the need for gender disaggregated data for planning and evaluation. While progress in gender statistics has been significant, persistent gaps across the data value chain limit our ability to address inequalities fully. Strengthening collaboration amongst national statistical offices, women's machineries, civil society, and development partners is key to making gender data more inclusive and impactful. Citizen data, once primarily driven by civil society organizations, communities, and researchers, has now finally gained recognition amongst national statistical offices and development partners in advancing a more participatory gender data agenda. Throughout UN Women Count program, we really witnessed this shift, as we've seen in Uganda, for example, where the Bureau of Statistics has developed a new toolkit on citizen-generated data, and this has been now institutionalized. This has now institutionalized civil society participation within the gender data ecosystem. And what we've seen is that this has really fostered shared responsibility for stronger gender data ecosystem, but also stronger collaboration amongst the different stakeholders. As the inaugural chair of the now steering committee and now a steering committee member of the Collaborative on Citizen Data, UN Women has championed a trusted and collaborative environment between state and non-state actors. This was in fact recognized as one of the key strengths of our gender data program, the Women Count program, during the recent midterm review of the program that we held in Medellin during the World Data Forum. There, we've really heard from our different partners and donors who, appreciated our approach to it, and even some called it a game changer. And this is really, again, the principle that underpins our work with Paris 21 in developing the Participation for Transformation framework, which we are launching today. P4T, as we call it, reimagines the gender data ecosystem by embedding participatory collaboration into transformative action for gender-responsive policies. The framework defines 3 levels of participation: engagement, involvement, and empowerment. And this is reflected in real-world successes. In Paraguay, for example, engagement with civil society in monitoring gender statistics And in Morocco, we've seen a strengthening of collaboration through multi-stakeholder dialogue. And Uganda is also another example that has formalized citizen data within its gender data system in partnership with the Uganda Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. Today's session marks the official launch of the P4T framework. Sorry, colleagues. It's early here and they're not in school yet, so that's the noise that you are hearing. As I was saying, today really marks the official launch of the P4T framework, and to provide an overview, I will invite Liliana Suchodolska to provide an overview of what this work entails and what is it that we are really advancing as part of this framework. But before handing over to Liliana, I would really like to take this opportunity to thank our dear friends and colleagues at Paris 21 for what has really truly been an excellent and long-standing collaboration to develop this framework, but also amongst many other excellent work that we've done together. So, and also, let me also thank everyone who has contributed to the development of this framework. And I really hope that through this discussion and through this launch today, we can really have a good discussion on how we can use it going forward to continue to strengthen gender data ecosystems. Thank you very much. Over to you, Liliana.
Thank you very much, Papa. I hope you hear me well. May I ask my colleague Rodrigo to share the slides? So my name is Liliana Suchodolska. I am a team lead of the Gender and Inclusive Data Ecosystem team in Paris 21. So I will present to you our joint publication that we have been developing with UN Women over the past year. And this publication has been inspired, as Papa has alluded already, by our long-standing collaboration, by the support to countries that we have provided across all continents, but also by the new understanding of the gender data capacity, which has been presented last year to the Gender Data Outlook, but also the novel recognition of citizen data, recognition of civil society actors as data actors, and their data as a source of evidence on gender equality. Next slide, please. So this is the new framework, Participation for Transformation of Gender Data. The idea behind the framework is to bridge two ecosystems that we still see operating separately, the ecosystem of data actors and the ecosystem of gender equality actors. And we believe that only by combining the powers, the strength, and the skills of these actors, transformative partnerships can be formed to advance the power of gender data and to bring a meaningful change for women and girls. Next slide. So why this framework now, and why do we need this participatory framework? So of course we know, and we have heard many times, that there has been great improvements in the measurement of gender indicators over the past years. But also thanks to this improvement, we also know that the gender equality globally, the progress is too slow to achieve the SDGs. So as of March last year, none of the signatory countries of the 2030 agenda had comprehensive data on all 52 indicators, gender-specific indicators across 17 SDGs. The global average stood at, of these indicators stood at 56% only. So these persisting data gaps still hinder our ability to understand the extent of gender inequalities. We also know that the funding for foundational surveys providing gender data, such as DHS or MIX, are stopped, and other foundational sources of gender information, including the CRVS, are at risk. We know also that the progress is enormous. So evidenced by 2022 Global Survey on Gender Statistics, the proportion of countries which have specific legal mandates for gender-focused data collection has tripled over 2012 and 2022. However, the improvement in data availability has not translated into gender data use and the implementation of effective policies that address the root causes of gender inequality. Policies remain, and official data collection remain gender blind and perpetuate inequality as policymakers lack awareness and tools for implementing gender sensitive policies. Official data methodologies must account for cultural norms and ensure accurate and relevant data. For instance, gender-sensitive adaptation in field work during the data collection, such as considering cultural barriers for female interviewers, are vital to ensure that gender is addressed at all stages of evidence gathering. In addition, there is a growing recognition of the role of civil society actors as data providers through global initiatives such as the Collaborative on Citizen Data. Paris 21 and UN Women are proud members of the steering committee, and the Copenhagen framework, which was endorsed by this year's United Nations Statistical Commission. So transformative change is needed to ensure that gender data is collected in a way that captures the complexities of gender-related issues in their local context and acknowledges the intersectionality, which is the interplay of different dimensions of lived experience and identity, such as age, race, ethnicity, migratory status, disability, and geographic location. This calls for a bold recognition of civil society actors as important pillars of gender data ecosystem. Our understanding of this ecosystem, as well as the gender data capacity understanding, has also evolved. And we see that none of the existing state and non-state actors can act on their own to advance gender data. So participatory and collaborative partnerships on gender data are key to lead the change at the level of institutions, organizations, and policy to eventually lead to a change in the situation of women and girls. Next slide. So how do we understand the ecosystem of gender data? Next slide. So we see three key stakeholders that can work together to advance gender data. So first of all, national statistical offices, who are primary custodians of official statistics. They produce reliable information that is informing policies and programs. They are the data quality experts, and they follow internationally agreed methodologies and standards and act according to the fundamental principles of official statistics. Second category is the ministries in charge of women's empowerment and gender equality. So of course, their knowledge and power to make decisions and design policies and programs is invaluable. Third category, civil society actors. So of course, amplifiers of any data, advocates and community leaders and grassroots organizations who are at the forefront of leading the change through their actions, through their programs, but also through support and the provision of services. So we see that both state and non-state actors here bring unique strengths to advancing gender equality through data. Ministries working on women's empowerment and civil society actors, however, may sometimes lack the expertise of data and their expertise that is housed by the national statistical offices to collect quality statistics. On the other hand, statistics offices may not always have communication skills to advance gender data and produce it and disseminate it in a way that is understandable to policymakers. And this disconnect of skills may sometimes limit how effectively gender data drives policy uptake, advocacy, and action. Next slide. So the Participation for Transformation framework recognizes three categories of a meaningful participation of these actors in the data value chain that we recognize here. So first of all, the engagement. So the engagement is I think, the primary form of participation where any of these actors, statistics office, gender equality ministry or agency or civil society, can initiate evidence-based dialogue about gender equality and identify collaboration opportunities. So this first step can increase awareness of stakeholders' role in the gender data ecosystem and bring some first actions, collaborative activities. The second one is involvement. So that's more in-depth and more time-consuming activity, but definitely worth the effort. So here we have recognized activities which lead to using or inviting experts, knowledge brokers, and decision makers to contribute to increasing impact of gender data. This leads to more profound interaction and creates more impactful gender data products, such as leaflets, joint strategies, dissemination, press releases, expert studies, but as well as advocacy and partnerships. The third category is empowerment. So here we empower new leaders, new champions of gender data who can advance a positive change, solidify advocacy skills, and facilitate engagement with their networks, driving sustained initiatives for gender equality beyond short-term timelines. So here we really are talking about new skills and the change of mindset. So it's important to know that any of these actors and any of these categories can be undertaken at a given time, depending on the capacities of these actors. And the initiation can come from both the part of the state, but also non-state actors. So the framework provides many examples from all regions on how it can be done across all stages of the gender data value chain. Next slide. So this is just a snapshot of a matrix that we have populated with various examples from countries presenting case studies on how these participatory activities can take place at various stages from design until data collection, through data collection, and until dissemination and use of gender data. So it also is mapped according to the categories of participation, engagement, involvement, and empowerment. Next slide. So let me just propose a couple of participatory examples from countries. So Papa has already alluded to them, and we will have a whole presentation from speakers, but let me just quickly present to you how these examples show up in the framework. Next slide. So first of all, Paraguay. Here we have curated this example for you because of the transformative engagement in strategic planning. So National Statistical Institute of Paraguay, Ministry of Women, supported by Paris 21 and UN Women, engaged civil society actors in the monitoring of the implementation of their 4-year gender statistics strategy. This move has invited civil society organizations to take this monitoring role with regards to the progress of capacity development for gender data, but also led to various activities that led to collaboration on the new Violence Against Women survey, where the Statistics Office, Women Ministry in charge of Women's Affairs, and civil society worked together to harmonize approaches to data collection on violence against women. Next slide. In Morocco, the National Statistical Offices at Commissariat au Plan work together with experts from the Moroccan Association for Women's Rights to train enumerators on sensitive data collection, including how to help interviewees recall violent events, ethical procedures, and referrals to services, and support survivors. So through this collaboration, enumerators of the Statistics Office and civil society listeners work together in the data collection, including also the analysis of data, and then this collaboration resulted in a more gender responsive survey tool, which increased the trust also of stakeholders in the resulting data. Next slide. Here an example from Kenya on the empowerment. The framework also includes an empowerment examples from Uganda, but we will hear more from the panelists. But it presents really a trailblazing example of how Statistics Office development partners can empower civil society organizations to become data actors. So through various quality approaches, but also open communication and building new partnerships, Statistics Office of Kenya has engaged civil society actors in filling of SDG data gaps, including on gender data. And there are various participation in technical working groups resulted in a more institutionalized way of advancing gender data through the Memorandum of Understanding between Statistics Office and an umbrella CSO organization, SDG Kenya Forum. So Kenya and but also Uganda have been at the forefront of operationalizing citizen data, and they are leading examples to other countries. Next slide. So as you heard, this value chain of gender data is quite long, but at each of these stages, from design through collection of data analysis and dissemination, through up until monitoring and use, civil society actors, statistics office, and ministries and organizations or agencies in charge of gender equality can work together to advance gender data for transformation. And the framework is supporting countries with many examples, but also in providing overall, I think, guidance in how this can be done. Next slide. So with this, thank you very much. You can scan the code to access the framework, but we invite also your participation in the chat as you will now hear from our panelists. Thank you so much.
Many thanks, Liliana. I think with that comprehensive overview of the P4T framework and those inspiring examples, I'm already reflecting on how I can engage, involve, and empower different stakeholders. So as I hope many of our participants are. And with that, let us move to the second part of our event today, a panel discussion where we will hear reflections on participation and collaboration from representatives from national statistical offices, civil society, and development partner organizations. The discussion will be moderated by the wonderful Jessamyn Encarnacion, Interregional Advisor at UN Women. So Jessa, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Sophie, and thank you too, Liliana. We've just heard a very insightful presentation on the P4T framework. It underscores the importance of engagement, involvement, and empowerment. And I think these are the three keywords that you will often hear throughout this session in making gender data more inclusive, actionable, and most importantly, transformative. So to dive deeper into what this means in practice, I am honored to introduce our distinguished panel of speakers who bring valuable expertise and firsthand experience in strengthening citizen participation in gender data. So let me welcome our distinguished speakers, Ms. Miosotis Rivas Pena, General Director of the Oficina Nacional de Estadística, or ONE, Dominican Republic's National Statistics Office, Ms. Carol Namagembe, the Deputy Executive Director of the Uganda Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, or CSBAG, and Ms. Asa Andersson, Counselor at the Swedish Mission to the UN. So now let's begin our discussion. And my first question goes to you, Ms. Sotis and Carol, to kick us off. So the P4T framework recognizes that CSOs can be both powerful users as well as producers of gender data. Could you share with us one impactful example where your institution has engaged, involved, or empowered your partner to advance gender data? So I look to you first, to Miosotis as chief statistician of ONE. How has your organization worked with civil society to strengthen gender data?
Thank you, Jessa. And let me, first of all, thanks to Paris 21 and UN Women for the invitation to be part of this side event on the CSW 69. That is very also remarkable because we are celebrating 30 years of Beijing. So it is wonderful and it's very powerful to be a part, even remotely, of this side event. And I want to also congratulate both of you once again because of the framework, the P4T framework participation for transformation on gender data. That it was very useful how Liliana introduced to us, and I was making a review to prepare my presentation today here. And because it is important how the framework now emphasize the participation, not that civil society or also the women movement could have impact in the work that an institution like the National Statistical Offices in our countries can address. And in this piece, I think that we have we receive a lot from women movement when we were talking about how gender is mainstreaming in different areas, and statistics is not the exception. In the Dominican Republic, for example, we were working a lot and trying to work together, not just in issues like violence against women, that it was the ones that is the P4T is presented in the case of Paraguay or Morocco, but also we are working together in terms of teenage pregnancy, time of use, and also to working with Paris 21 together with Paripot 21 under the program of Women Conference for Renewing Women in the construction of our gender strategy for the statistics to 21 to 24, and also involving civil society in consultations for our framework that is a conceptual framework to how to measure violence against women and girls, and it will be very, very important. And taking into account the framework, and when you mentioned the value of change to transform, this data value chain, introducing data perspective. From the National Statistical Office, we from those 8 phases that this data value chain has, we are more focusing, having experience on specified needs that women has, and how like the civil society, the movement of women has, and trying to understand in the case of violence against women, how this violence is how they are facing in terms of design better instrument to do we have an experimental survey a few years ago on violence against women, and we are trying to understand how is how women are feeling the violence in different spaces in order to design better our instrument. And also I guess that when of the phases where we are have more experience also is in dissemination, how we are trying to hear from civil society how they want to be the services more inclusive, more disaggregate, and also more accessible to different stakeholders. So we are trying to we produce a different web page, specific web page, and when we disseminate information from a different aspects from women, political participation, violence against women, education, teenage pregnancy, having maps and different atlas. Know that it is important to arrive to access to people with different instruments, different forms. So I will be stop there and try and happy to continue talking to you, Jessa.
No, thank you so much, Miosotis, for sharing those insights on collaboration between civil society and the ONE in strengthening gender data. I see that in 2 phases, both from all enabling environment to the such as the NSDGs, or the National Strategies for the Development of Your Gender Statistics, to data production on specific thematic areas such as violence against women, and likewise making sure that these are likewise disseminated and communicated in partnership with NSOs. I think the holistic and likewise integrated approach by ONE in meaningfully engaging with civil society is truly inspiring. Thank you, Miosotis. So Carol, over to you now, and building on that from CS Bag's experience, I think what strategies have been most effective in engaging NSOs and ensuring that your voices as CSOs are heard in official data processes? Over to you, Carol.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting us to share our experience. For the case of Uganda, Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group is coordinating non-state actors to leverage on their work on working for women and girls and promoting gender equality. And we have been in position to generate information from different civil society organizations, which they use to inform policies and certain decision-making on service delivery in real time. For the case of CSBAG, we have a consortium currently of CSOs that are working at national and local government level. But for CSBAG specifically, we collect data to inform how government mobilizes resources, and how it delivers services to ensure that there is equal access of services, public services, to especially the vulnerable populations here, including the women. And we have been in position to generate data in the past that has seen government able to take decisions that inform some of the concerns we have generated from the communities where we are working. And I'll give a case in point on the issue around blood, access to blood in our health centers. We were able to collect information from different civil society organizations across the country and use this information to inform, especially Parliament, on the gaps that exist on the shortage and lack in some areas, lack of access to blood. And we use this information to be able to argue out a case that additional resources can be allocated in areas where there is need. For the case of the current financial year that we are running in Uganda, we saw, after we presented our alternative budget proposals on this issue of blood, we saw the Parliament of Uganda requiring the Ministry of Health to improve how much money it had allocated to the vote on blood transfusion in Uganda. Luckily, there is a particular budget line where you can trace where there are any shifts in the decisions we are influencing. And between the financial year of 23-24 and the one that we are running of 24-25, we saw a 52.2% increment in allocation, specifically on an area of blood transfusion. Such steps taken by government give us confidence that indeed, when we have the right information, we can be able to inform the powers that be, in this case, policymakers, and they can direct decisions that address the needs that citizens actually identify in the monitoring. Another example is on last year, we were in position to mobilize civil society organizations to generate information on SDG 4, target 4.5 on gender parity in various primary schools that we are operating in. We have been in position to share this information with the Ministries of Education, Ministry of Gender, and currently we are in the process where we can have prioritization on among the many issues we generated on special needs education, on lack of access to menstrual hygiene. What can they prioritize as they move forward into their planning phase? Currently in Uganda, we have also, through the consortium of civil society organizations, we have been supported by UN Women and receiving technical assistance from the Gender Data Hub to develop a central repository where all civil society organizations working on various areas around gender equality and women's empowerment can be able to put their information, and this information can be accessed by both state and non-state actors. And in this particular case, our main target was with Uganda Bureau of Statistics, who actually embraced this. And we feel that if we are ready, because the prototype is ready and we put it online, access to citizen-generated data will be improved. We are currently working with the Uganda Bureau of Statistics to support us in building the capacities of civil society. We know our capacity levels in data governance, but we are happy that the Uganda Bureau of Statistics is open and embracing us. And we hope moving forward, we are going to see more changes that are supporting transformation in CGD. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Carol, for those valuable insights on effective strategies for engaging NSOs and broadly the government, the budgeting arm of the government, and amplifying CSOs' voices in these data processes. I think keywords for me during your intervention was really the real-time data that citizen data offers, and likewise local level data, and therefore translating it whether at the local and national level planning and budgeting purposes. And I see like the kind of partnership and engagement and recognition that that you are having within Uganda with the support of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. So thank you, Carol. And I move now to our third speaker, Osa. My question to you is, how can partners support the assessment of participatory data initiatives in gender data projects so that we can ensure that community-generated insights influence policy and decision-making? So thank you, Osa.
Thank you very much, Jessa. And first of all, thanks to Paris 21 and UN Women for inviting Sweden through Sida to this interesting session. And I think it's great to hear about the gender data framework. And I think also my colleagues, both from Dominican Republic and Uganda, provides really excellent examples of the program that Sida is very proud partner of, and that is the WomenCon program. And we recognize the importance of building gender data on global as well as country level. And we recognize that UN Women are very well positioned to deliver on this. So reliable data on gender equality is key to inform policymaking, as many of you have already stated. Governments and organizations need accurate data to create policies that effectively address the gender gaps, and the gender data help us then to show these gaps. However, for gender data programs to be sustainable, they need to include a gender analysis in the design phase. They need, and the gender analysis should also include an intersectional approach, already highlighted, and identify the gaps then that needs to be addressed. And for example, there can be gaps where data have been collected and analyzed, but if not, then a gender perspective is included, then the data collective can then, unfortunately then strengthen existing negative gender social norms. So donors need to strengthen partners at all levels, civil society, governments, and other actors. And they need to strengthen the capacities in this regard. And the question on reliable data and funding to develop reliable and trustworthy data needs to be budgeted for and followed up. So this means that donors need to acknowledge the cost of designing and implementing projects for data collection and analysis. So to ensure that intersectional approach is used, donor also needs to ensure that additional costs are addressed in partners' budgets. And we all know that reaching the ones left behind, we need to do things differently. And it is often linked to additional costs. So to fully use an intersectional approach, partner needs to have diverse teams who are local and who knows the context, as very well explained already in the examples. And the teams, they also need to understand the realities of the community and who lives in that community. We need to be able to understand the specific need of women and men and in all their diversity. We need to understand power dynamics in the communities. And as we live in patriarchal societies, we tend to overlook in general, as you know, the needs of women. So this also has to be accounted for when setting up program for data collection. As reliable gender data in itself help us to identify gender stereotypes and biases, we need to make sure that the ones collecting the data are aware of the stereotypes and bias. So therefore, Sida put the focus on country-level ownerships and sustainability. And we believe in funding local-led initiatives and civil society organizations, as well as women rights organizations that work on the local level. With a vibrant and empower diverse civil society with women's rights organizations in the forefront, we strive to create better conditions for all people to have a voice. And this is linked to our support for increasing women's agencies and women's political participation, as well as women economic empowerment. So with a stronger women's collective, where women are actively involved at all levels of society, we will also see women included to a higher extent in the collection and the development of gender data. The dissemination of gender data needs to be widely shared, also through an intersectional perspective, making it easy, accessible for everyone in all the diversity. Accountability structures need to be set up in order to facilitate insight and knowledge. And here we see our focus on digitalization as a method and means to make our development aid more efficient, and that is the key. So to sustain participatory gender data initiatives, long-term investment in capacity building is essential, not just for civil societies who are collecting the data, but also for policymakers who are using it. And Sida has played a crucial role in funding the development of training programs, data literacy initiatives, and participatory data sharing platforms, ensuring that participatory data initiatives are not just one-off projects, but embedded in sustainable gender data systems. So for community-generated insights to influence decision-making, participatory data must be recognized, validated, and utilized within official gender statistics systems. Our support of the Women Count program has demonstrated how strategic partnerships between donors, governments, and civil societies can make participatory data a central part of gender-responsive policymaking. So Sweden remains committed to strengthen these efforts, ensuring that participatory approaches are institutionalized, adequately resourced, and valued as a critical component of national and global gender data systems. Thank you.
Thank you
Over
so
to you,
much.
Jessamyn.
Yeah, thank you so much, Asa. And again, I think this excellent examples and likewise insights wouldn't have been possible without the support that the Swedish government has provided to our partner countries as well as partner organizations such as Paris 21 and others. So I think I recognize that, but key takeaways from me really is, as you have underscored, we need capacity building, we need to ensure data production, but all of this comes with additional costs, and this cost should have like sustainable funding, not only for civil society, but also for policymakers or all the actors within the gender data ecosystem for all of this to like really to happen and likewise fully realize. And I think another takeaway would be like stronger women's collective, ensuring that there are diverse teams, that LNOB and intersectionality is front and center throughout the process, and making sure that the community that we get from the community, the context as well as understanding on the gender differentiated needs in the communities. Thank you so much, Asa. And now I turn you back back to Carol as well as to Miosotis, but probably I'll first go to Carol this time. I'd like to hear your perspectives on the next question. I will give you both 2 minutes to respond to the same question. Can you tell us one skill that you think would be most critical in your participatory example, and one skill that you feel is still lacking in your institution to ensure participatory engagement and meaningful engagement? Carol, I'll start with you and then as followed by Miosotis.
Thank you so much. From our experiences, we have noticed that, yes, civil society has been good at collecting data, but oftentimes we have been collecting data for evaluation and reporting for many of our members who are not necessarily influencing policies. It has really been about M&E related data. So the main skill we are trying to now build amongst the civil society is to now collect information in a manner that is going to allow them generate evidence that will inform decision making at various levels, right from the local government. It could be a legal framework, it could be the budget, it could be just change in service delivery. So we are trying to support our civil society actors that if only we can improve the way they collect data, what kind of data to collect, and how then we can use it to inform advocacy, it would be good. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah, no, and in my case, I guess, and also I want to add the issues of analysis and emerging issues, because maybe, and we were talking about with you from you women 2 weeks ago about that, how, for example, how to deal with climate change, how is try also, because from my perspective, the specific women movement have been more involved in issues like violence against women, teenage pregnancy, political participation, but the less on economics, those no use like climate change, how to use also, and also how to use the intelligence, artificial intelligence to collect data, to better try to measure or try to understand how they have and how to they can improve how they collect the data, and also instances about the quality of the data. And that is something that we need to discuss a lot, because and even there will not be like an official statistics, as we know, no, but a minimum of a standard of quality. We need to ensure that the information, but that the data that the civil society is collecting have those kind of standards. So for me, that is very important to develop those skills on better how to have better quality, but also how to analyze those emergencies issues that are in front of using the new technologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Miosotis and Carol. I think I hear from you, Carol, that it's basically going beyond the traditional use of citizen data among citizens, among CSOs, that it's not just program data, it's not just for M&E, but rather actual use for policy making, decision making, and identification of beneficiaries for programs. And then for you, Miosotis, again, also going beyond like traditional areas where we work on citizen data, where we work with CSOs, not just on violence against women, but rather also in economic statistics or climate change. And I must say, Miosotis, during the CSW, I probably have been involved and participated in at least 3 gender and environment data nexus side events, many of which are really looking for data and most of which are invisible in official statistics, and therefore we need citizen data. And likewise, as you said, AI citizen science data coming from citizen science is likewise underscored. So thank you so much. And now I'd like to open the floor after we've heard from 3 of our distinguished speakers. I'd like to open the floor for our question and answer session. So for those joining us, please feel free to raise your hand or type in your questions in the chat, and we will address those in the next 6-7 minutes before we close the session. Sophie, can you help me? I'm not seeing whether there are questions. I see now. Okay, I see in the Q&A window, there's a question to the group. How do you ensure that approaches that intend to empower civil society actors avoid becoming extractive and crucially avoid shifting the burden, for example, from the state to the NGO sector to create and use gender data? So I think the floor is open to anybody who would like to respond to this question. It is, I think, related to how we can further trust the process, that is not extractive, that is in the truest meaning of inclusiveness and meaningful engagement.
Yes.
Miosotis?
Yes, maybe I think that it is also because for the also for the National Statistical Office, how you can deal that is not the burden, not all the work that you have been done, and because you now have to take how you deal with all the demands that you have from the statistics that and from data. That is something that we are working now, and I guess even we need to be part. And I said here in the Dominican Republic, this is have to be part of our what is our national plan? What is our national development plan? We need to because the participatory, and that was something important in the Dominican Republic. Our national development strategy has gender and participation as mainstream in all the in all the strategies. So in the way that you have, not just because the National Statistical is doing, it's because the state is doing. No, for me, it's very important to have mechanisms not just from us, but also from the state to open more participation in the way that you have that. Is important, so that you is going to create as a state those spaces for participation, not just at the governmental levels, no, also at the local level. That is also necessary to have this bottom up of participation, because it's in the territory when you have the more enrichment information that we can use after to work with the civil society and the data or the information that they are collecting.
Thank you,
I could
Miosotis. I
add
think
to that.
Carol, yes.
But it helps not to just celebrate collecting the data, but to follow through until we are seeing that it is informing, and then we rather celebrate the change this data is causing. That way, there will be more motivation from especially the
You are frozen, Carol, just in case. I hope it is. We're not hearing anything from your end, Carol.
Yes,
Yeah, I think.
yes, should I
Yes.
come
Yes,
in?
please. Yes,
Yeah.
also
Then
while we wait for
before,
Carol. Yeah.
yeah, hopefully Carol will
users
come
that are
back.
collecting this data, and then we shall allow.
Sorry, Carol,
Has
we
that
didn't
changed?
hear you. You were cut off at the beginning of your intervention, unfortunately. So we didn't hear your. While you try to sort out your connection, I will give the floor to Asa, and hopefully, when I get back to you, you have better connection. Over to you, Asa.
Thank you. And just to add a little bit from our perspective as we see it, what we can do from the donor points of view is, of course, to ensure that those capacities remains within our partners and strengthen those capacities, as well as ensure that our programs are adequately sourced for actually taking on this responsibility of addressing gender data, both collection, production, and then from the user perspective. And maybe to add also that we have in our programs, we always have a certain part of money needs to go for monitoring and evaluation, and including then, of course, tracking and follow indicators and reporting on them, etc. And so it's we're trying to embed it in a way so it's always an mandatory parts of the programs that from Sweden. Now I'll say that. Now I'll hand over again. Thanks.
Thank you, Asa. Carol, yeah, I hope we hear you this time because you were cut off earlier. Can you please repeat what you said, unfortunately?
Oh, sorry. I was saying that it helps to avoid extracting civil society. It helps that we do not celebrate only collecting data, but we'd rather follow through to the end of the loop to ensure that when this data is collected, we see how it is informing policy and certain actions. That way, we should concentrate on celebrating the actions that government is taking to address the gaps that citizen-generated data presents. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carol. Very well said by everyone. I don't think we don't have any more questions, and we don't also have any more time. But just to say that I think from your point, Miosotis, key takeaways are really bottom-up approach, and I think it's also the question on how NSOs will also deal with all the demands, and likewise I think this is a learning environment in terms of how to really engage with the broader gender data ecosystem, and there's really so much to learn with other partners. During the marriages of the Statistical Commission, one of the questions was, for those NSOs that we are supporting conducting gender environment surveys, how are they able to engage with indigenous peoples? And I think this is something that we are learning from. This is still a question from our end, but we are learning from other NSOs who have done this, such as Dane. And I think from ASA, from the donor's perspective, that we highly appreciate the point being made that, you know, whatever engagement or support that is being made, capacities should remain within the partners. I think that's how value of the investment will really be sustained and likewise like further multiplied. And lastly, with you, Carol, I hear you in terms of meaningful engagement, not just in collecting, but follow through, that it is not about just the data itself, but rather the actions that come out of the data. And this kinds of engagement will be throughout the whole data value chain. And likewise, hopefully throughout a virtuous process, that it is not just, you know, after the action, then new engagements, new meaningful engagements arise. So I think thank you so much to our esteemed panelists for such an engaging and insightful discussion. Your reflections on strengthening partnerships between state and non-state actors, ensuring the sustainability of participatory approaches, as pointed out by OSA, and the role of citizen-generated data in shaping policies highlighted by both Miosotis and Carol highlight why inclusive and collaborative gender data ecosystems are so critical today. So we truly appreciate your time and expertise in shaping this conversation. Now, I would like to turn to you, Johannes. Johannes Jütting is the executive head of the Paris 21 Secretariat. So over to you, Johannes, for the closing remarks.
Well, thank you so much, Jessa. Thank you so much, colleagues. I have to say, it's extremely difficult for me to say anything meaningful after listening for nearly now a good hour to very, very, very good interventions. And I wanted to really start with thanking you all for taking the time, for making such wonderful points from very different perspective, from a National Statistical Office, Miosotis, from Uganda, from a civil society organization, from a donor organization as important as Sida. And then, of course, also from our friends and colleagues from UN Women, Papa and Jessa. So I really appreciate this. I think partnership is important, strengthening partnership is important. And this specific partnership between a small organization like Paris 21, having a good foot in the ground and very close to national statistical offices, and an international first-class organization like UN Women, partnering has yielded a lot of very, very, very important products. So this is the first point I wanted to make. The second point, just stepping out a bit of this specific conversation I wanted to make is, this is a bit more for our friends of the National Statistical Offices, and from somebody who is following the debates then more than 15 years or so. I think what we have been doing here, the thinking about how we integrate data sources and engage with non-state actors is really, really important for the future of national statistical offices and of official statistical offices all over the world. It's not only just an issue for the global south, it's the issue for the global north. We often talk in technical terms. We like to think about data value chains. If I talk to my wife, she doesn't understand what a data value chain is, but she will understand, or when we talk, she understands, of course, about the impact of data, about the use of data, and those kind of things. And I think what you have been doing here is bringing in and thinking about the how the civil society organization, how not only we bring the data to the civil society, to the citizens, but how the citizens themselves can take ownership and be part of a process. That's a reversing our thinking from 50 years. Basically, the thinking was we just have to produce the good data and then churn it out, bring it out. Now we think it from the end. We think it from the user side. And I think this is very important, and we need to do more work on this. Which brings me to my second and last point. What next? And I think I heard a couple of really interesting insight on what we could do next in this changing and challenging environment, where key things that we have thought were agreed upon are being challenged, right? Are being challenged. So I was thinking the one word that sticks to me is the localization and incentives. So what is the end game? I think, Elise from Uganda, you made it very clear. It's just the end game is not just to produce wonderful gender data, disaggregated. The end game is to change, and I would say not even policy, only public policies. The end game is to change behavior of people, of all citizens. It could be the private sector, it could even be the citizens themselves. And we have to bring this closer to real policy challenges. And I think you mentioned some of those. It has to do with bad infrastructure. It has to do with paying out-of-pocket payments in hospitals. It has to do with bad educational things. It has to do with a lot of sewage problems. These are local problems that are faced by people. And if we can get better data into the hands of the decision makers, which may be public but could also be private, we have a lot of things achieved. So the localization is one. The second is, I think, also you mentioned it, digitalization, innovation, AI. I think it's the second next big thing. We have to go very, very quickly and very fast. and to see of how we bring in the citizens. We at Paris 21, we are just about to launch a task team for NSOs about how to use AI in a meaningful way, exactly for this purpose. So this is something which is, I think, is really important. So innovation and digitalization and AI. And the last thing, to some extent, I already mentioned, is I think we have to go, and this is, I'm speaking here mostly to our friends and colleagues from the statistical community, so basically to ourselves, is we really have to go more to the end users and the impact and the data use and see. We do a lot of things. I think we are a bit ahead of the curve with UN Women here, but we have to be even faster going forward and do this kind of, I think, Elisa, you said it, what's the purpose of collecting the data if they don't see, if my colleagues don't see any impact? So we need to re-engineer from the end. I think we have an opportunity, the challenging times, questioning us, questioning the moral instrumental value of gender data, which is very difficult. I think we have to put forward the intrinsic value, the intrinsic and instrumental value, how through more and better gender data we can achieve other things like economic growth, productivity, and whatnot. And I think we have a lot of examples how better data here, disaggregated data, will lead to more cost efficiency, to more productive societies, to better healthy societies. I think it's not so complicated, but we need to do it now. So with this, thank you so much. It was really a great undertaking. I thank all the people who have been there, 90 people I saw at some point in time. But before we go all the way, maybe all panelists, could you please put on the cameras for a final snapshot? I was told that would be wonderful. So if my colleagues, I take the time to thank my colleagues, of course, Sofia and Liliana, who did a great job in putting this all together with Jessa and colleagues from UN Women. So maybe just one smile for the eternity, I don't know. Thank you very much.